Peace. Peace, peace, peace. So, this video is going to be on the continued inquisition against the Moors. Don't mind this pimple on my face. I popped it the other day, and that's what happened. That's why you don't pop pimples. Anyway, it's going to be on the Inquisition and how the Inquisition is still going on today. Um, just so you know, the word Inquisition means to investigate. And guess what the FBI stands for? The Federal Bureau of Investigation. But anyway, for those of you who don't know, um, dark skinned people back in the day were known as Moors, and they ruled the entire planet. There's a bunch of convoluted history as to the origin of Europeans and where they came from. Are they monkeys? Are they this? Are they that? Are they reptilians? Are they space aliens? etc. Whatever the case may be, there is a time and point in history where the Moors educated Europeans and taught them everything about life, from bathing to cooking their food to being respectful to one another, to not eating children, to not sleeping with animals and things like that. Over time, now of course, I'm making leaps into history and there's a bunch of fillers that need to be filled in. So don't just take everything I'm saying as absolute. Always look it up and research and find the details. Because I have to jump through history because there's no possible way for me to give you every single detail. Because while I say Moors were educating Europeans, there were also Moors who weren't. There were also Moors who were just continuing on with their own society. There were also Moors who didn't want us to go into Europe and educate Europeans. So don't think that when I say the Moors were educating Europeans, that means every single Moor was involved in that. And when I say the Spanish Inquisition, don't think that every single Spaniard was involved in that. Don't think every single European was involved in that. And don't think every single Moor was fighting against it. So always keep those things in mind as I'm speaking. But anyway, uh, back in antiquity, after we civilized a bunch of Europeans, obviously there were some that didn't like us. Obviously there were some that loved us. Obviously there were some that hated us. Obviously there were some that wanted to protect us. And obviously there were some that could care less about what happened to us. Just like obviously there were some Moors who hated Europeans. Obviously there were some Moors who loved Europeans. Obviously there were some Moors who saw the importance of cleansing Europe of the Black Plague because it was infecting the planet, and there were Moors who didn't care about whether or not the Europeans were infecting, Asia and South Asia with their Black Plague. So over time, as people developed, as political allegiances were established, some Moors went into Europe and educated Europeans. Some Moors also put Europeans into bondage, which we call slavery today. Some Moors were also selling European women, men, and children as sex slaves. Other Moors saw them as equal. There were also Europeans who seen that some Moors were trafficking Europeans and just decided to hate all Moors. Some of those Europeans decided to form organizations to raise funds to release Europeans from captivity. Other Europeans decided to bear arms and fight against the Moors to free their people from captivity. Long story short, well, not long story short because I'm going to keep going into detail, but after a series of time and wars and different political borders being established, once Europeans have or had a stronger hold and establishment of government amongst themselves and linked with other Christian powers, such as before there was any Italy, the Romans and other quote unquote Italian kingdoms, they were able to muster up enough force to actually fight against those dark skinned people who now think that they're black today, who are actually Moors. Um, Starting around the 10th century, although there were a bunch of wars before the 10th century, all the way, back into the BC times. But the 10th century is around the time when the first crusade against the Moors was established and instituted by the popes of Rome. Now, this history is kind of missing from our people, but hints towards that is why Rastafarians don't like the popes, because they are aware of some of this history. Although some of them may not speak about it in detail, they know about the pope's involvement in the enslavement of our people, starting, well, not necessarily starting, but historically noting the crusades of the 10th century. Now, there are about five crusades. So five major, you know how like when the United States went into Iraq and Afghanistan and they called them, like operating enduring freedom and things like that, where it's a major military move. That's what a crusade is. So those are major military operations to physically combat against the Moors. Now you have, again, around five crusades, and then after the sixth-ish crusades, that's when you see the Inquisition. Now the Inquisition was where you get more military tactics, as opposed to just brute force, sword on sword, man on man. This is where you get spies and things like that, where the Europeans weren't just up front fighting against the Moors; they were infiltrating organizations, and of course, vice versa. This isn't just the Moors were always the good guys during the situation. No, there were Moors selling European children into bondage, selling women into bondage, things like that. We were doing terrible things to them. So don't think our ancestors are innocent in any of this. And oh my God, the Moors, we're just victims of white supremacy, and these Europeans just dominated us and they tricked us into fighting. No, 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 none of that victim game bullshit. Read what we were doing to them, and you'll see they had more than enough reason to fight against us. So don't even trip. Anyway, as I was saying, the Inquisition became more of a tactical war, whereas again, as I was saying, the Crusades was more brute force. The Inquisition was where you get more of the torture. Where we're not only gonna fight against the Moors, but we're gonna capture them, torture them to give us more information. And of course, when you go all the way up into the Spanish Inquisition with King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella dealing with Al-Andalus and our defeat in Al-Andalus, they're known for the bureaucratization of the Inquisition, whereas it became more of a paperwork thing. This is where you get mortgages and things like that today, where the Inquisitionists or the conquistadors would go into a Moorish territory, lay claim to it, right? They're just claiming it, not lawfully, so it's conversion. Then they'll say, if you don't pay us taxes, we have to evict you. So now it's not, we're gonna go there, fight and murder everyone. No, we're gonna go to their estate and we're gonna occupy it. And then while we occupy it, we're gonna control their food, their water, we're gonna control their commerce and things like that. Because remember also during that time, if you controlled sugar, sugar creates the same triggers in your brain as hard drugs. So back in the day, if you controlled sugar, you were basically like a drug lord. And guess who controlled sugar from North, South, and Central America all the way into Europe and South Asia, which we call Africa today, and all the way up into Asia Major? Guess who controlled that? The Moors. And reference to that is proof that after we got defeated, the Europeans went to tropical climates. They went to the so-called Philippines, which those are Moros, and then they went to the islands, which they call the Caribs, or Hispaniola and things like that. Why? Because those islands produce an abundance of sugar, right? So the Inquisition became more of a commercial war, which is why you see the United States has been in a commercial war basically since its inception. So after the Inquisition, once the Europeans established their stronghold against Moorish trade and things like that, obviously there's a lot more history that I can't cover. But fast forwarding into time, after a long series of wars, after the Inquisition, which it wasn't really after the Inquisition, it just became more of a geopolitical war, because of course over time things change. It was no more, I'm going to conquer you, get you off this landmass and just take over. It's no, I'm going to go to where you are, conquer you, keep you here, and then control your life. So that's where you get the geopolitical. Geo means earth, political means rights. So now you're dealing with territories and land. This is where borders, quote unquote borders, because they're not real, but the geopolitical mental borders begin to change. This is where you get the word kingdom. Dom means dominion. So the dominion of the king is anywhere where he has control. So there is no quote unquote borders. It's where that person has control, he or she, because of course king just means ruler. It's not gender specific. Anyway, once the quote unquote Spanish Inquisition began to cease, it did not stop. It just slowed down, or I should say decrease. You know, the Spaniards and other European powers wanted to control commerce in the Mediterranean. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, the Mediterranean is not what you think it is. It's not where you think it is. The word Mediterranean means Middle Earth, right? Meta means middle, terrain means earth, or terra means earth. So now, what is in the middle of North America, which is earth, and Africa, which is also earth? What's in the middle of that? Water. So they're controlling the trade from America, from the Americas, North, South, Central America, and the islands, all the way to the eastern continents, which eastern to us is Europe, what they call Europe, and Africa. Evidence of that is in, there's a book, I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was released by the authority of Congress, where Christopher Columbus said, with your help, talking to King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella, with your help, I can promise you the riches more abundant than Asia, Europe, Africa, and Australia. The only two continents, or the only other continent he didn't mention, was America, because they knew that the Moors had dominion over here. So that's proof that whenever historically they're talking about the Mediterranean in commerce, they're talking about from North, South, Central America to the other side of the ocean, of the Atlantic, right? So you start to see around the 1600s where England and the Sultan of Morocco began to, due to their mutual enmity towards Spain, because Spain was one of the dominating parties of commerce at the time because of the wars that they had against the Moors. You'll see around that time period is called the Anglo-Moroccan Alliance. This is where you begin to see, after the various skirmishes and fights with the Moors, the Europeans were able to establish at that time period free commercial trade colonies within Morocco. This is where you get Queen Elizabeth I and Sultan Moulay Muhammad, if I'm not mistaken, because you know our ancestors always had like 7 different names. You know, if you were a bey, you would get a certain name. If you became a pasha, you got another name. If you became the sultan, you got another name. If you became the khalifa, you got another name. So, excuse me if I'm mistaken his name at the time. But during that time period, our sultan and the monarch of England was trying to establish an agreement amongst each other. Now, our sultans ended up sending an ambassador to the court of England, and that ambassador ended up falling in love with Queen Elizabeth. This is where you get the story of Othello the Moor. It's based on that relationship. Lo and behold, both Queen Elizabeth and the Sultan died before they can establish an embassy in the respective territories. So the monarchs of England wanted to have an English embassy within Morocco, and our Sultan wanted to have a Moroccan embassy within England, but they both died around 1603. Then King James I came into power, did his little agreements to end the little European skirmishes amongst his territories. Meanwhile, everyone and their grandma was claiming to be the Sultan of our nation because we like to play games. So during that time, there were around 7 Moors claiming the right to be Sultan, which made it so other nations didn't want to do business with us because we didn't even have our house in order. Anyway, King James I ended up becoming the monarch of England, and Sultan Zaid, if I'm not mistaken, became the Sultan of Morocco, and that continued the establishment of the agreement between England and Morocco during the early 1600s. And when you do the research, you will see that King James I begged the Sultan of Morocco to have free commerce within Moroccan dominions, to let all European captives free and to allow them to have free trade in Morocco. And guess what happened in 1607? That's right. The first free colony in North America, Jamestown, Virginia, King James, Jamestown, Virginia, 1607, which is proof that Moors since 711 have been trafficking Europeans from Europe to South Asia, which we call Africa today, to America. That's how they got here. Then, of course, when you study this all the way up, every single establishment of every single colony, to include the Dutch, which they call the Netherlands, the Dutch fur trade in New York, the so-called Indian treaties, certain dates with the so-called Indians and the different European crowns will match the same treaty with the same European crown and the Sultan of Morocco establishing free trade with the Europeans in Morocco. So that's how they cover up your history, and it's all through the 1600s. If you study the treaties, you'll see exactly that. Moors brought Europeans here as servants in slavery. Then their crowns got them free and established free colonies. This is where you see the British and the Spanish fighting for commercial trade in North America. They were fighting each other, not the Moors, because they were fighting each other for trade, right? Then you see eventually the Spanish, the Dutch, the French, since their monarchs were in Europe and they had colonies here in America, the colonies here in America didn't like how they were being treated. So the Europeans on North America that were colonies ended up fighting against their European counterparts in Europe. Excuse me, this is where you get the Declaration of Independence from. This is also where, since we had treaties with Spain, the French, the British, etc., since we had treaties with them and it protected their subjects and our dominions, once their subjects became independent, those treaties no longer applied to them. This is why the United States had to get a treaty with the Moors. Why? Because they're in Morocco. Period. Look at the treaties. Don't believe a word I'm saying. Look up the treaties and you will see how hard it is to find these treaties. And then once you find them, you'll see exactly what I'm saying. And make sure you do a comparative analysis and make sure you do cross references with all types of information from different scholars. Look it up. Look up the Barbary slave trade. Look up the Anglo-Moroccan alliance. Look up Othello the Moor. Just look it up. Literally, right? So anyway, the Europeans here in North America got free and fought themselves free and independent from the different crowns of Europe. They formed independent trading posts called colonies. Those colonies came into association with each other for business and protection, which is where you get the Articles of Association. Then you get the Articles of Confederation, where they started to solidify their quasi-national government. Now, the reason why I say quasi-national is because the Europeans consist of nationals of different nation states, so they can't be an actual national government. That's why it's a federal government. That's why I say quasi-national, because quasi means fake. Then you'll even see in diplomatic correspondences and within the floor of Congress, where after the treaty with the Moors, the United States was still paying tribute to the Moors, 20% of Congress's budget when they were already going broke. And this is where the letter, the letter that Sultan Sidi Muhammad, or Muhammad ibn Abdullah, or Muhammad the Seventh, where the letter that George Washington wrote to him, apologizing for not paying his taxes, etc. And then you'll also see where Thomas Jefferson, during the presidency of George Washington, was trying to rally the other European powers to support the United States and give them a navy to help fight against the Moors due to their mutual enmity towards us. George Washington wasn't with it. He was like, nah, we're going to pay them, because they weren't built for war at the time. Then obviously after George Washington died, then there was another president after him. I can't remember off the top of my head. And then Thomas Jefferson came into power, and that's where you get the Barbary Wars of the 1800s all the way up to 1815, which is also where you get Haiti's Revolution, which they weren't slaves, they were free Moors, and they just so happened to beat the United States, right? At least half the island beat the United States. This is where you get the division between Saint Dominique and Haiti, which is really Quisqueya. And the reason why they call them Dominicans is because when you look up the Dominican order, the Dominicans were part of the Inquisition, right? So let me just show you that real quick. Saint Dominic. the Saint part didn't come in, but there it is right there. Saint Dominique. Saint Dominique. And you'll see right there, it says Inquisition right there. So let's click on Inquisition. You see right there. So this is where you get Dominican from. This is where you see Moreno Bay say he's not no goddamn Dominican. And he knows he's a Moor. Because once our people got conquered, then they became known as Dominicans because they're telling you we conquered you via the Inquisition. So Thomas Jefferson ended up becoming an Inquisitionist, right? You don't have to believe me. Look it up for yourself. Now, after 1815, which they call the end of the Barbary Wars, President James Monroe warned the Union about other Europeans' interests in the United States because their Inquisitionists were trying to overthrow the Republic and overthrow the relationship between the honorable Europeans with the honorable Moors to end wars and do free business and trade on North America in peace. Some people didn't want that. This is where you get, again, the President James Monroe Doctrine of 1822, warning everyone about the possible coup that other Christian powers, or I should say Christian powers, because the United States was not founded on the Christian religion, which you can find that in the Treaty of Tripoli, Article 11, with the United States and the Kingdom of Tripoli, which is part of the Moorish Empire. But you see, President James Monroe warned everyone, hey, these Europeans trying to do some shit that they're not supposed to do over here, right? Warning the Union. And of course, at that time, we still had our separate government, so don't get it twisted. We're still warring with Europeans. Don't get it twisted out here. Don't get it twisted that the United States is our government. No, I just told you their inception is European colonies from European slavery who got freed because of the Sultan of Morocco. So don't get it twisted. We had our own separate government, which is why in the Moorish questionnaire, Prophet Noble Ali said, what do we call our ruler of Morocco? We call him Sultan, not President. Sultan, not President. Therefore, the United States is not our government. Secondly, they were brought here, so how are they our government? Anyway, moving forward. 1822, President James Monroe already warned everyone. Then, of course, over time, the coup happened. That's where the coup of 1861 happens, which is related to what President James Monroe was already warning you about. Right? That's where the Inquisitionists came and formed a democracy. Right? Now, during that democracy, guess what they established? The FBI. Right? What does FBI stand for? The Federal Bureau of Investigation. What does Inquisition mean? Investigation. Now, this is from the FBI vault, where they admit to COINTELPRO. So COINTELPRO is an arm of the Inquisition. It's a continuation of the Inquisition, and the director of the FBI is the General Inquisitioner, whatever you call him. That's public enemy number one. Moorish public enemy number one. So COINTELPRO, the FBI began COINTELPRO, short for Counterintelligence Program, in 1956, which is a lie. They did it way before that. To disrupt the activities of the Communist Party of the United States, which is a lie. In the 1960s, it was expanded to include a number of other domestic groups such as the KKK, which is a lie, the Socialist Workers' Party, and the Black Panther Party. That part's true. All COINTELPRO operations ended in 1971, which is a lie. Although limited in scope, about 0.2% of the FBI's workload over a 15-year period. COINTELPRO was later rightfully criticized by Congress and the American people for abridging First Amendment rights and for other reasons. Now, right here, this is the representative in Congress admitting that the FBI murdered Fred Hampton.
Soda rise. I just take a minute to address the body, Madam Speaker.
Without objection.
I want to first thank Congressman Rush and Davis for allowing us to be here to honor the legacy of Fred Hampton. 50 years ago,
this is what you call a converso right here.
21-year-old
you'll see,
American
I'll show you.
revolutionary was murdered in his own hometown, in his own home, by 14 Chicago police officers who were found to be colluding with the FBI as part of the COINTELPRO initiative. Scholars now widely believe that the Hampton's death was under the FBI's initiative. This initiative was a series of covert and often illegal projects aimed at surveilling, infiltrating, and disturbing civil rights organizations, feminist organizations, peace activists, and the environmentalist movement and native groups. Common tactics used by CONTELPRO were perjury, witness intimidation, and withholding evidence to falsely imprison and assassinate leaders of the Panthers Party. Among those on the list was the young Fred Hampton. Fred actively fought against the corruption and injustice black and brown people were being subject to on daily basis. He sought to build a multicultural movement, the Rainbow Coalition, seeking to end violence among street gangs. Let us teach our children and the new generation of his legacy and the fight against racial inequalities, police violence, and mass incarceration. Yes, the same problems black and brown men and women face today still continue as it did back
The
then.
gentleman's
Oh,
time has expired.
didn't she just say it's still continuing? But the FBI said they ended it. Oh, okay.
They are criminal justice system and the failed war on drugs continues to disproportionately impact communities of color.
So she's
And
telling
it
you.
is time we join
She's telling you
together
what it is.
to fight.
She's telling you what it is, right? Now, hold on. Let me just do this real quick. Let me show you. Just in case you think it's not real. Right. Also, look up the Black Messiah Act if you're not familiar with that. COINTELPRO. Right. COINTELPRO was a series of covert and at times illegal projects conducted by the United States Federal Bureau of Investigation aimed at surveilling, infiltrating, discrediting, and disrupting American political organizations. They don't say no terrorists. It says political organizations. Now remember, this is post 1822, where President James Monroe already warned you that this inquisition is trying to take over the Union. And then post 1861, where if you go to the Congress's website and look up certain newspapers or just get my second book, you'll see where they admitted that there was an overthrow in the United States. And that's the foundation of the Democratic Party. Because in the Constitution, adopted 1791, nowhere on the document does it represent or reflect or state or hint towards any type of democracy or two-party system. It's a Republican form of government. There's one form, Republican. There are no parties. Right? So they're telling you they're targeting political organizations, not terrorist groups, political organizations. Period. They're gonna throw a bunch of words in your face to confuse you, like, oh yeah, they're investigating the KKK too. I'm gonna dispel that. Watch. Right. The FBI has used covert operations against domestic political groups since its inception. So they lied and said 1956 or whatever on the FBI website. But nah, since they started, again, the FBI is part of the Inquisition. It's an arm of the Inquisition. COINTELPRO tactics are still used to this day. Oh, but they said they ended it. How could they have ended it if this congresswoman just talked about it December 2019? If it was ended, she wouldn't need to talk about it. And have been alleged to include discrediting targets through psychological warfare, smearing individuals and groups using forged documents, and by planting false reports in the media, harassment, wrongful imprisonment, and illegal violence, including assassinations. This is where you get Fred Hampton being murdered, which they're going to show you a picture of him dead. This is where you get El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz being murdered. This is where you get Prophet Noble Drew Ali being murdered. This is where you get Marcus Garvey being deported, and his name being dragged through the mud. This is where you get Dr. Malachi Z. York being alleged to be a pedophile when he started the Nuwapian Nation of Moors, and then those agents that sold him out just called them Nuwapians, not the Nuwapian Nation of Moors. This is where they took all the fezzes off. This is what that is, right? Look, Fred Hampton, they murdered him. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. They forged documents. They even tell you that they were writing to the Black Panthers and to the Peace Stones in Chicago to get them to fight each other. Also, look up the Black Messiah Act. I'm not going to do that on this video, but look it up. Oh, let me see. I'm looking for a specific thing. Yep, they admit to being involved in murdering Malcolm X. Look, the prevent of a Messiah, to prevent militant Moors. That's what they don't want. They don't want militant Moors. Why? Because every nation has a military. Why does every nation have a military? To protect its national interest. What's its national interest? Its people. So of course they don't want you to have a military. This is the Inquisition. Why would an Inquisitionist want you to have a military to fight them? Look, CIA is involved. You see the CIA right there? All right, let's keep going. Let's keep going. This is the intended effects of the Inquisition FBI. COINTELPRO. Create a negative public image for target groups, for example, through surveilling activities and then releasing negative personal information to the public. This is where, when I thought I was Negro, Black, and colored, I had a European girlfriend. And this is where Moors claim that they found this out when it was on my Facebook because I don't hide it. That's who I was. I'm no longer that. I'm no longer mystified with following the idol gods of Europe. Once I was introduced to more science, I was like, oh shit, okay. I know my job now. These aren't my people. Because when I was Negro, Black, and colored, I thought I was a citizen of the United States. I thought us and the Europeans were one. That's not what it is. So agents will do things like that. They'll quote unquote find things that weren't even hidden that I keep public because I don't care. And then they'll also say, oh, I exposed that Jamal was once in the Marines. Ooh. When I got tattoos on my body to prove it, so I can't even hide it. Right? Anyway, that's what they try to do. They try to break down internal organization by creating conflicts. For example, by having agents exacerbate racial tension and send anonymous letters to create conflicts. Number 3, they create dissension between groups. For example, by spreading rumors that other groups were stealing money. This is where when I was trying to fly Grand Sheik Cujo Ottawa L out here, Ottawa L, excuse me. I was trying to. I paid for his plane ticket. I paid for his hotel. This was early, like 2 years ago, and Moors were saying, "Oh, something about he's gonna get stopped at the border or assassinated or some bullshit like that," because they don't want us. They don't want us to link, right? They restrict access to public resources. This is where you see where my Facebook has been shut down like 7 times. They restrict the ability to organize protests, which is where you see the whole DCYF thing where we were protesting DCYF for stealing children. And then they try to say we assaulted like 3 state troopers in the state house and then we walked out. And then restrict the ability of individuals to participate in group activities. This is where you get the whole COVID scare and everyone stay home and oh my God, Negro, Christian black codes, black people can't be in groups. That's what that's from, right? Then here, where is it? Here are the methods. That's Fred Hampton. Excuse me. This is Fred Hampton, the guy that they murdered. They paid a Moor, denationalized Moor. They flipped him into being a paid FBI agent. They paid him 300 notes, 300 Federal Reserve notes, to draw the layout of Fred Hampton's house, which this was, and the Moor that sold him out was Fred Hampton's personal bodyguard. They paid him 300 notes to draw out his home for the police and the FBI to raid, and then prepare his food, drugged him so that he would be sedated when they came in to murder him, so he wouldn't fight back. And then the Moor that was on duty that night with the shotgun, he was assassinated immediately, murdered immediately, because I think his name was William O'Neill, the Moor that sold out Fred Hampton, also informed the police that there was going to be an armed Moor at the door. So they murdered him. And out of the 100 bullets that were fired in Fred Hampton's house, the only bullet that was fired by the Black Panther Party was the one shotgun round that the Moor fired into the ceiling as he was being murdered by the Chicago police and FBI. So these are the FBI methods. Infiltrate, right? Well, infiltration. Agents and informers did not merely spy on political activists. Their main purpose was to discredit, disrupt, and negatively redirect action. Their very presence served to undermine trust and scare off potential supporters. The FBI and police exploited this fear to smear genuine activists as agents. Psychological warfare. The FBI and police used myriad dirty tricks to undermine progressive movements. They planted false media stories and published bogus leaflets and other publications in the name of targeted groups. They forged correspondences, sent anonymous letters, and made anonymous telephone calls. They spread misinformation about meetings and events, set up pseudo-movement groups ran by government agents, and manipulated or strong-armed parents, employers, landlords, school officials, and others to cause trouble for activists. So as an example, you'll see Moors like Taharka Bey, who claimed to be a Grand Sheik of a temple. That is an FBI agent who's in charge of an organization to misdirect our people. So don't get it twisted. The shit's still going on. Harassment via the legal system. The FBI and police abused the legal system to harass dissidents and make them appear to be criminals. This is where you see where they kicked in my door. And they sent me to prison. And they took my retina scan when I have no criminal record whatsoever. At all. Ever in my life. Ever. But since they need to try to discredit me, they know I have guns in my house, so they try to do a dirty raid so that way I could react in a certain way, and then they can just call me a terrorist, which that did not happen. But this is what they do, right? Officers of the law, which they are not, gave perjured testimony and presented fabricated evidence as a pretext for false arrests and wrongful imprisonments. Don't believe me? Look up the Malcolm X documentary, Who Killed Malcolm X, and you'll see it. Look up the documentary on Fred Hampton, and you'll see it. They discriminately enforce tax laws and other government regulations and use conspicuous surveillance, investigative interviews, and grand jury subpoenas in an effort to intimidate activists and silence their supporters. And if any of you have ever been in contact with any of the Moors that associate with my organizations, you will see that they have been contacting Moors around me. They've been contacting other Moors who don't know that they're Moors around me as well. Whether it be, people that I'm known to have associated with, people who are in my family, people who are friends of my family, Moors that are known to come to the temple, people like that. FBI has been calling a bunch of people. And when the police stole me from my house, human trafficked me from my home, while we were in the fake courtroom, they stated out of their own mouth that I'm under investigation. Illegal force. The FBI conspired with local police departments to threaten dissidents to conduct illegal break-ins, which is what they did to me, in order to search dissident homes and commit vandalisms, assaults, beatings, and assassinations, which after they came into my house, my security camera system was messed up, and they were looking for arms in the house, which they did not find. The objective was to frighten or eliminate dissidents and disrupt their movements, which they did. Undermine public opinion. One of the primary ways to the FBI targeted organizations was by challenging their reputations in the community and denying them a platform to gain legitimacy. Now, this is also evident when we were forming the rally against DCYF. There were certain members of the Black Lives Matter movement who didn't want to attend our meetings anymore because they found out that we were being investigated by the FBI, although we have never done any criminal activity. So don't think that this stuff is fake. Hoover specifically designed programs to block leaders from spreading their philosophy publicly or through communications media. Furthermore, the organization created and controlled negative media meant to undermine Black Power organizations. For instance, they oversaw the creation of documentaries skillfully edited to paint the Black Panther Party as aggressive and false newspapers that spread misinformation about party members. The ability of the FBI to create distrust within and between revolutionary organizations tainted their public image and weakened chances at unity and public support. So this is the FBI. This is the inquisition against the Moors, right? You see where it says Moor right there. Now, also, just to show you that this is a continued operation, this is known as the hood of the Inquisition. Inquisition hood right there. Who does that look like to you? What does that look like to you? Right? See that right there? The pointed hat of the Inquisition. Who does that look like to you? Who does that look like? Who was doing the lynchings in the South? That's right, the KKK, right? The KKK, right? That's the same Inquisitioner hood, right? Is what the KKK wears, right? So I know I just said that the FBI is the arm of the Inquisition. Now, guess what? The KKK, who wears the same hood as the Inquisitionists, have infiltrated the United States politics. And these are politicians who are Klan members. So if you have any doubt that the head of the FBI is not part of the Inquisition, not a Klansman, you are out of your mind. Senator was a Klansman. Chief Justice of the United States was a known Klansman. So you're going to tell me that the head director of the FBI, whose mission is to disrupt political organizations, isn't part of the Inquisition? Who's this guy? Supreme Court Justice. Inquisitioner. Who's this guy? The governor of Mississippi. Inquisitioner. Who's this guy? Senator of Georgia. Inquisitioner. Another senator of Georgia. Inquisitionist. Federal judge of the United States District Court for the Middle District of Tennessee. Inquisitionist. So remember, when you see KKK, that's Inquisitionist. The governor of Indiana. Oh, look, a Republican. Two wings of the same bird. Inquisitionist. Not Klansman. Inquisitionist. Governor of Colorado. Inquisitionist. Governor of Alabama. Governor of Georgia. Congressman of Tennessee. U.S. Senator for Alabama. Senator for Alabama. Secretary of State of Tennessee. All of these people are Klansmen. Who are really what? Inquisitionists. Look. When you click on this, it says the remnants of the Inquisition. Remnants of the Inquisition. The Inquisition against who? Hold on. Inquisition against who? The Moors. Who are the Moors? The people that look like this. Right? So don't you ever doubt for a second that the Inquisition was over. And don't be misled by the KKK is just white supremacy. No, they are Inquisitionists fighting this ancient war against us, and we just forgot. You're talking about judges, Supreme Court judges, U.S. senators, Republicans and Democrats, Inquisitionists, known Klan supporters, known Klan members. And he supported the NAACP. and you think these people care about you? You think, oh yeah, we got some Muslim women up in Congress. You don't think that they're conversos? So you telling me that in the Inquisition, they didn't have conversos? That's what you're telling me. To promote their black agenda. You're telling me that they didn't have conversos and moriscos. The same people you see today claiming, yeah, we're part of the United States and that's our government. And, you know, we're electing senators and representatives and all this bullshit. These people are part of the game. And it's not really a game. It's a war against you. And since you're afraid to fight, they're winning. Right? And this is where you get the converting to Christianity from. This is where you get the Christian black codes from. The slave codes. Why? Because those same senators, representatives, governors, they were all part of the Klan. What's the Klan? The Inquisition. I'm not going to read all of this to you. Because it's pretty goddamn evident. Look, Noble Dryly literally said, spend 2 hours. 2 hours, that's it. Not your whole life getting a master's degree. He said 2 hours in a quality library. That's it. And you'll see all of this. I've been going on for 45 minutes and that's it. And you can see all of it. It ain't that complicated. Cross-reference all of this stuff. Cross-reference the FBI COINTELPRO with the Spanish Inquisition, with the Ku Klux Klan being members of just the United States government, period. Then look at what the Inquisitioners used to wear. Then look at who the Inquisition is against. And you see it's not racism. It's the continued bureaucratic establishment of the Spanish Inquisition dating back centuries ago. And we just forgot. And they do things like, oh, we're going to give them smartphones and TVs to keep their minds preoccupied so they don't even think about fighting back. They don't even think about what's really happening to them. Then we'll just use their converso nigger leaders to keep promoting that they're black and they're Spanish and they're colored and they're Indians and they're West Indians and they're Caribs and they're this and they're Dominican and they're Haitian and they're this and then everything but Moors. This is not complicated. It's really not complicated. It's really not. We are not citizens of the United States. We are not. That is not our government. We are to have our own separate and independent government, like every other free people on this planet. We're not interested in overthrowing the United States. We're trying to get them off of our back. We don't want to infiltrate that. They're on our back. That's like I'm getting bullied by a bunch of bullies, and to try to stop them from bullying me, I'm going to become one of them. What the? How? When? Where does that work? So you're telling me if an ant colony is fighting against a termite colony, if the termite colony doesn't want to be fought anymore, they're just going to turn into ants? Show me. Show me where that has ever happened in nature and worked. Show me. It can't work. We are two separate people. That's just it. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just what it is. That's like saying fire and water are the same. No, they're not. They're not the same. They're not. Moors and Europeans are not the same. We might be similar because we're all humans, but we're not the same. And there's nothing wrong with that. Just like gorillas don't hold fish to the same laws. Europeans can't hold Moors to the same laws. The only thing that we can hold each other to is what we agree to. And internationally, that's called a treaty. But this has been implemented. All of this has been implemented to get you away from that type of political standing, to get you away from the affairs of men, to get you away from that. It is the continued operation of the Spanish Inquisition. Don't doubt it for a second. Like I said, you don't need to study for 20 years to comprehend this information. You don't. And you can't say the FBI didn't admit it because this is from their website. You can't say they didn't admit it. This is their website. This is literally their website. Look, black extremists. This is where you get the black extremist movement. But then they told you that they ended COINTELPRO. How they end COINTELPRO if this Moore is telling me that at night, when they walk outside, there's trucks that skirt off at night with long ass antennas. What are those trucks doing outside at night with antennas? Why are Moore's telling me that FBI agents are going to their family members' houses looking for them to try to ask them questions? But COINTELPRO ended. Why is it that a Moore on video called the FBI and the FBI was trying to get him to name drop? And the Moore's like, yo, what are you talking about? You can just Google all this information. You can go to law books and get this information. You go to the Library of Congress and find this information. But what are they trying to do? They're trying to establish conspiracy charges. They're trying to establish RICO charges. Why? Because they admitted their job is to falsely imprison our leaders. Their job is to murder our leaders. They're not going to stop if you send them a writ. Matter of fact, I know I just told you I'm not going to look up the Black Messiah Act, but let me just show you something. This shit ain't hard to find. I'm just going to go to The Guardian, which you can find the actual image of the actual FBI documents where the FBI COINTELPRO program wrote this, right? Let me see. Look, Stokely Carmichael already knew that he was being targeted, so he fled to Ghana because our people don't protect our leaders. We just be like, whatever. We just be like, whatever. If they weren't Spanish, if they weren't black, that wouldn't happen. Nah, we're the fucking problem because we ain't doing shit. Show me one Chinese national that'd be like, oh yeah, one of our people being targeted. Whatever. Fuck out of here. Where is it? I'll just do this. Go to images. Look at that. It pops right up. Let me see. Let me see if I can find page 1. I mean page 2. Right here. Oh, this is page 3. Right here. So this is the counterintelligence program. This is part of the FBI's operations. Right? For maximum effectiveness of the counterintelligence program and to prevent wasted effort, long-range goals are being set. Number 1, prevent the coalition of militant black nationalist groups. Excuse me. In unity, there is strength. That's what your prophet told you. A truism that is no less valid for all its triteness. An effective coalition of black nationalist groups might be the first step towards a real Mau Mau in America, the beginning of a true black revolution. So now tell me, when and where are we ever going to be free with just documents? Show me any country that nationalized without a military. Show me. Matter of fact, once El-Hajj Malik al-Shabazz left the Nation of Islam and formed Muslim Mosque Incorporated, he was telling you we're forming a military. That's why they assassinated him. Not because he was following no goddamn paperwork. Not because he said, oh, I'm an L now. No. He said, we're going to take this so-called black problem and turn it into a human rights problem and bring these people to the United Nations and sue them. And guess who was backing him? People like Fidel Castro, who was known for nationalizing Cuba, who was known for freeing his people and assisting other so-called African countries do the same exact thing. So now you tell me, you honestly look, no, don't even tell me. Look in the mirror. Look at yourself. Stare into your own soul and tell yourself that this is going to happen with just paperwork. Lie to yourself and tell yourself that we're going to get free with just goddamn paperwork. When? Where in nature has that ever happened? Matter of fact, go to the jungle, go walk in a panther's dominion and see what the hell is going to happen to you. Matter of fact, go to China and try to do something to one of their officials, see what's going to happen to you. That shit only works on black people. You can do whatever the fuck you want to black people. You can do whatever the fuck you want to Moors. Why? Because they ain't doing shit. They are the number one violators of nature. Moors are. Why? Because we get slapped, stomped, murdered, choked, thrown in prison, children removed from the house, and all we want to do is say, nah, ancestors got it. I'm going to send paperwork. Fuck out of here. What else is their plan? Number 2, prevent the rise of a messiah who could unify and electrify the militant black nationalist movement. Malcolm X might have been such a messiah. He is the martyr of the movement today because they murdered him. Martin Luther King, Stokely Carmichael, who went to Ghana once he figured out that he was being targeted, and Elijah Muhammad all aspire to this position. Elijah Muhammad is less than a threat because he's old. Martin Luther King could be a very real contender for this position should he abandon his supposed quote unquote obedience to quote unquote white liberal doctrines, meaning nonviolence. So what the FBI is telling you? All you gotta do is form a military and fight us back, and you'll be saved. And all these Moors are like, nah, because if you start posting guns, you're gonna make us a target, bitch. Bitch, this has been planned since before any of you were born. We've been targeted since before you were born. Before you were born. Before you were born. You've been a target since before you were born, to keep you oppressed since before you were born, to prevent anyone of your bloodline from raising to any type of office, which a Messiah is a public office. Look it up. And just inspiring your people to fight for your freedom. Their job is to kill people that, not kill, excuse me, murder people that speak like this. That's their job. That's what they do. That's their plan. They're not sitting back saying, oh, I hope these Moors don't send paperwork. That's not their goddamn plan. And for us to just sit back and allow Moors to say, all we got to do is pray to Allah and send fucking documents and say Islam and say universe and say ancestors and say family every goddamn 3 words and sell you goddamn red brick dust. These people are tripping. And for us to allow that, to allow our people to spew such stupidity out of their minds, out of their mouths, we are part of the goddamn problem because we're allowing it. Yes, you have the right to free speech. Yes. But if you don't know shit about nothing, shut the fuck up. If there better not be no Moors talking to me about military strategy if you have not been in the military. Don't talk to me about it. I'm a Marine, so don't fucking talk to me about it. Don't say, oh, by you displaying your guns, you're revealing all your hands. Shut the fuck up. Shut up. So you're telling me when all these nation states show all their tanks and nukes and troops that they're showing their whole hand? No, that's a sign. Don't tread on me. That's a sign. Don't tread on me. That's a sign. Don't mess with me. That's a sign. Be very, very cautious. That's a sign. Be peaceful with me. Why? Malcolm X said it himself. El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz said it himself. I am non-violent with those who are non-violent with me. Those who become violent with me nullify my non-violence. That's how every single nation is postured except for us. What did Grand Sheik Kujo say? FOH. Now, to be clear, I'm not discrediting paperwork at all. That's not what I'm doing. I've seen paperwork to an extent. So let's qualify that. To an extent, a small fucking minuscule extent, be effective. Tiny extent. A tiny extent. I've seen it be effective. The majority of the time, I see Moors willing to die in the courtroom, speaking out of their own mouths with fire I've never seen before. That's what keeps them free, not no goddamn paperwork. Their mind is what keeps them free, not no goddamn paperwork. Their willingness to die and live and fight for their goddamn rights is what keeps them out of prison. Not no goddamn paperwork. And what did your prophet say? These Europeans are not going to stop till they look death in the face. Now, every time one of these Moors that I associate with go to court, they look at that magistrate claiming to be a judge with the fear of Allah. They look them straight. I don't care if you send me to jail. I don't care if you murder me. I'm still telling you you're a colonist. I'm still telling you you're a foreigner. I'm still telling you what it is. That is our salvation. Not no goddamn paperwork. You see their plan? You see their plan since their inception? Remember, when we looked up COINTELPRO, they told you that the FBI has been doing this since their inception. They're not sending paperwork. They didn't send paperwork to assassinate Fred Hampton. That's not what they did. They didn't give him paper cuts to death. That's not what they did. What'd they do? Oh, excuse me. Oh, that's my hair. What'd they do? They flipped one of our own people, paid him 300 notes, and then murdered Fred Hampton. And if you don't know who Fred Hampton is, please look him up. Please look him up. If you do not know who Fred Hampton is, please look him up. If you do not know who Malcolm X is, El Hajj Malik El Shabazz is, please look him up. If you do not know who Marcus Garvey is, please look him up. If you do not know who Noble Drew Ali is, please look him up. If you don't know who Fidel Castro is, you better look him up. Matter of fact, let me do this. Let me just do this real quick. I put Malcolm C by an accident. Oh, look at that! Wow. Wow. How come these black leaders don't want you to know this? Hmm? Why don't they want you to know about these two freedom fighters building each other's minds? This is what you call international recognition. And guess who went to Havana, Cuba? Guess. Just take a wild guess who went to Havana, Cuba. Noble Drew Ali. Guess what they have in Havana, Cuba? A Moorish castle. Don't believe me. Don't believe me. Guess what they got in so-called Puerto Rico and Borican? The Moorish castle. Guess what they have in Granada, also known as Colombia? A Moorish castle. Guess what they have in Quisqueya, aka, well, not also known as, but falsely known as Dominican Republic in Haiti? A Moorish castle. How come your black leaders ain't telling you about this? How come they're not telling you about that right there? About these freedom fighters? How come they're not telling you about how the Moorish peace stones were arming themselves to fight against oppression, being supported by Libya? How come they're not telling you that? Why won't they tell you that? Why are we so willing to let our people just get assassinated? Why are we so willing to just turn into sellouts against our own people? Why? For what? When what they're doing could benefit all of us, even the goddamn sellouts. Why? Why is that acceptable? Why is that acceptable? But me bearing arms to defend myself isn't. When the FBI is planning to kill any person that speak against anything that they have to say and raise our people to any type of freedom. How come it's okay for them to do that, but I can't post guns? I'm not even telling you to kill nobody. I'm just posting them. I'm not even telling you, hey, go out and do this and do that. No, I'm just posting them. That's it. This is what a gun looks like. And that's a problem. Meanwhile, FBI over here, murdering people, admit to it. Senators admit to it. Everybody knows it. And we're just like, yeah, I'm gonna go to that Jay-Z concert. Yeah, I'm gonna go to the club tonight. I'm gonna build in the club. Yeah, we're a Muslim. I'm gonna build in the club. I'm gonna build with my boys. That's what you want to do? That's what you want to do with your time? FBI got got a whole bunch of resources, organizational structure, plans, resources, people, weapons. They got a whole plan to keep you suppressed, to kill your leaders. How many times has Taj Tariq Bey been poisoned? Do y'all even know that? How many times? How come he's been poisoned so much and no one was like, you know what, let me volunteer to be your taster? Why? Why? But then we all claim, oh yeah, I love Taj. Oh, I love Taj. Volunteer to be his taster then. Be his food taster. Matter of fact, how about you bear arms and protect him? Oh nah, we can't do that. We can't do that. Because if we do that, we're gonna be targets, Jamal. If we bear arms, we're gonna be targets. Even though we're already targets. You know what? You know what I did for Abdullah when he came to teach at my temple? When he arrived, I assured him. I said, you see these three people right here? We're the only ones that know where you're living, that know where you're staying while you're out here. The only ones. We're the only ones that know. Then, when he got to the temple, guess who was standing guard? Armed. Us. Why? Because he's our elder. You're not about to kill our elder in front of us. FOH. How many Moors are doing that for Moors that you claim to love, for Moors that you claim to be your leaders? Are you doing that for them? Because if you read the oral statements about a prophet, if you read them, you'll see where Moors said a bunch of assassins tried to kill the prophet, and there were Moors who were with the military, had arms, came out and was like, nah. And you're gonna tell me that Moors didn't bear arms? And then the assassins ran back to the people that tried to have Noble Drew Ali murdered. Like, yeah, don't send us after him no more. You're gonna think twice before you touch our prophet. That's what nations do. Now, oh wait, no, let's just send them paperwork and the ancestors got it. If one more says that to me, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm probably gonna just lose my mind because that shit don't make no sense. Do your research. Don't let these inquisitionists don't let these inquisitionists don't let the Klan, it says KKK right there. Don't let these inquisitionists tricking you into thinking that you're a U.S. citizen. Don't let them trick you into thinking that the Inquisition is over and that the FBI COINTELPRO stopped. Don't let them do it. Don't let them pacify you to the point where you don't even stand up for your own rights. And if all you got right now is paperwork, that's fine. Utilize that paperwork. Exercise your brain. That is a piece of our salvation. That is a truth that cannot be denied. But do not think for 1 second that that is the end all be all to your salvation. Our mental freedom should always match our physical freedom at all times. It's called a divine mental, that which is unseen. You can't see thoughts, can you? No, you cannot. And national, which means physical, that which can be seen. Movement. So if you're free mentally, your inner world should reflect your outer world. Are we free physically? Hell no. Oh, so you think because you got access to the internet, you're free? Oh, that's what you think. Go buy a gun without permission. Can't do it. Go get in your car without permission. Can't do it. Go start a business without permission. You can't do it. Go build a house without permission. Can't do it. Can't do it. Morris, step your game up. We all have to step our game up. I'm not just saying, oh, I'm doing all the work and you're not. Nah, I have to step my game up too. I know what it is. We have to step our game up. And the more we step our game up, the more we'll be able to see the severity of this problem. And don't forget, I'm still relatively new here. I've been doing this since 2017-ish, right? I helped a bunch of people. I continue to help a bunch of people. And that has My experience, not just sitting down reading books, my experience in life have opened my eyes to the severity of this issue. And time after time again, I see our people not doing anything wrong, no crimes being committed, and these Europeans just take advantage. Time after time again, not just Europeans, the conversos too, the Moors, the conversos sell out Moors too, not just Europeans. So excuse me. And they're not going to listen to paperwork. They're not. They don't. If they would have listened to paperwork, then as soon as the United States became part of the United Nations, there would be no more war. So don't think for a second that it's not going to come. The Prophet already said it. Noble Ali said it. Prophet Muhammad said it. Yeshua said it. It's coming. The holy books tell you to get ready. Not to start no shit, just to get ready. So just get ready. Know who's who. Know what's what. And one of the things that always stuck out to me that Grand Sheik Cujo said was, how could we possibly, I'm paraphrasing. He said, how could we possibly unify if more still don't know who's dirty and who's not? That is a truth that cannot be denied. But you knowing some historical foundations, you knowing the purpose of the Moorish Science Temple of America, you knowing who Noble Drew Ali was, who he is, and what he did, that is what is going to help establish that discernment and that distinction and know who's true to the movement and who's not. And even if you don't know all that information, if you're true to the truth and true to your heart, that alone will tell you what it is. And don't think for a second that all the Europeans got all the guns and all the tanks. Look at the Vietnamese people. Don't think, oh, the United States got all the guns and all the tanks. Look at Cuba. Oh, the United States has a bigger military. Look at Cuba. Just get all that fear out of your mind, and we will literally be able to make strides forward. And I think knowing a lot of this information is what gets rid of the fear, because it's no more not knowing. It's no more of the, I don't know what's going on. Know that the FBI is looking for us. Know it. That way you can adjust accordingly. You can make moves accordingly. You can start doing shit accordingly. Like, stop selling each other out. You understand what I'm saying? Look up the counterintelligence program. Look up the Spanish Inquisition. Just look it up. And stop playing Moors. All right, I'm going to eat now. I just wanted to do this video because it was on my mind. Thank y'all for tuning in. Oh, yeah. This was also on my mind. I want to thank you all again for coming through when the Rhode Island State Troopers came to my house and did what they did to us. If it wasn't for you Moors, you active Moors, you honest Moors, you noble Moors, if it wasn't for y'all, I probably would have still been in there, because they're not letting people out because of coronavirus now. So best believe I am thankful to all of you, every single one of you. Every single one of you. And I'll do my best to continue to give you the best of me that I can give you. And I'll continue to do my best to try to help our people in whatever way that looks like. Even when I'm tired and, tired of our people's bullshit. Because trust me, I do get tired, but I keep going. I'm never going to give up on y'all. I'm never going to give up on myself. The same type of commitment that I brought with me when I was serving Rome in the United States Marines is the same commitment, but more, that I'm giving to you Moors. So thank you all, literally from the deepest part of my heart. I don't know how else to put it into words, how thankful I am that all of you came through, because they were asking for a lot of fiat that we didn't have. Because we're not out here selling Moore's packages. We're not out here charging thousands of dollars for legal services. We're not out here charging thousands of dollars for nationality papers. And I'm not even out here promoting my book to even sell. It's just the information's there. If you want it, you can get it. We're not doing that to Moore, so we're broke. So again, if it wasn't for all of you, you know, we would still be in there. And like I said, for some of you who've been on my Wednesday calls, it doesn't matter how, how, and I know this conversation has kind of been targeted about military and shit like that, but it doesn't matter what you do in the movement. As long as you're doing something that doesn't involve selling out, then you're contributing to the upliftment of our people. It's just I also know we need the military, so don't think that I'm ever undermining any activity that any active Moor is doing. I don't want you to think that for a second. I don't want you to think that I'm trying to put any negative energy out there for a second. That's not my intentions. That is not where my heart is. I just know, because remember in the Quran that Noble Ali gave us, it says that everyone has their own measure of wisdom. So I'm just trying to share with you my small measure of wisdom. That's it. So don't think I'm trying to say I'm better than that Moor over there because that Moor is not talking about the military. No, fuck that. I'd be stupid if I said that. Every single Moor is important. If you got children and you're teaching them that they're more, you are way more important than I am. Don't think that, oh, Jamal's in court and he's saying this shit. That's not important. The Moor's children are important. Protecting them are important. I'm just doing what I'm here to do. That's it. So don't compare your actions to any other Moor. As long as you're doing what you're here to do on this planet, as long as you're taking care of your family, then you're an active Moor. Don't believe me. Look at what the Prophet said. Moors are men, upright, independent, and fearless, who care for their loved ones and follow the Prophet to a destiny which is not uncertain nor unknown. They're fortified by the impregnable doctrine built upon love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. That is what makes you a Moor. Not, oh, I have to go to court and fight Europeans. Oh, I have to have a nationality card and that makes me a Moor. Oh, I have to do paperwork and that makes me a Moor. That's not what makes you a Moor. Your bloodline is what makes you a Moor. What makes you an active Moor is exactly what the Prophet said. You care for your loved ones and you follow the Prophet to a destiny which is not uncertain nor unknown. So again, just to clarify, I'm not putting out any hate out there. I'm not putting out, oh, you Moors or why we're in trouble. Nah, we are all in this together. Every single one of us. Remember that. Stay true to truth. Stay committed to truth. It don't matter what any man or woman says. If it ain't the truth, throw that shit in the garbage. All the way in the garbage and don't even look back at it. Stay committed to truth because truth is king. You ain't going nowhere without truth. Then take that fear, throw it in the garbage. Because that's not going to get you anywhere. It's natural to be afraid because we're still human. We're still in this carnal flesh. We still have self-preservation instincts. So being afraid is normal. But don't be full of fear. What else? If you can, experience as much as you can as a Moor, and I'm specifically talking about helping other Moors. That way, your perspective on the movement can change. Yeah, yes, you can compare it to yourself and your situation, your immediate family. But once you start to assist Moors and see their minds, see how they're thinking, once you start to see certain things, nature or Allah takes you to a certain level of comprehension where you can't unsee, and shit is real. you know. So always, Allah is the best teacher. No books can teach you what experience can teach you. So even if you're afraid, I remember I've said this before, but I remember when I first woke up, or when I first became aware of more science and things like that, I was just the thought of court had me so petrified. Just the thought of it. Just the thought of going to court had me so scared. But guess what? I did it anyway. Why? Because I wasn't about to let no thought of some European just wearing regular clothes in front of a piece of wood scare me. Fuck that. You know? And for all the Moors that you think you're alone in your territory, no, you're not. Because I thought I was alone in my territory for as soon as I woke up. It just took me and a few other Moors to organize just a study group. And that's what attracted other Moors. It wasn't just me. It was other individual Moors putting energy into this that made it what it was, not just me. So if you think you're the only Moor in your territory, just start a study group. Literally, we were going to libraries, public libraries, and for a long ass time, it was just me and my cousin in a room. That's it. And Grand Sheik Cujo will tell you, I called him a few times saying, "Yo, what do we do? We're getting kicked out of libraries. We're not even doing anything. We're just in a room talking." So what we do, we just kept bouncing from different libraries. We're like, nah, we have nothing else to do in this life. There's nothing more important than our freedom. There's nothing more important than knowing who we are. So we're not gonna let little old libraries stop us. And then we just kept going. And then other Moors would share our videos. And one of the first Moors to do it was Grand Sheik Cujo, and that brought in hundreds of Moors. And then those Moors told other Moors. And those Moors told other Moors. You know, don't worry about where to start. Just start. I used to be so afraid, not afraid, nervous on camera. Yes, when I first started, before every single time we recorded, and that wasn't even the live videos. We sat down, we recorded, I would talk, and then we'd upload it. I was still nervous. And then once we started doing live, I got really nervous. But I wasn't worried about where to start or what to say. I just did. I just started. There is no, all right, you start here and then you do this. No, you just start. Just do it. Just start teaching. And if Moors don't want to hear it, keep pushing. Don't waste your time. And I'm not saying human beings all waste of time. I'm saying if their mind is closed, it's not time for them to wake up. So don't waste yours. Just keep pushing. Don't worry about where to start. Just start. I literally started in my mother's basement in a suit. I didn't even have a working phone. I used my sister's old iPhone. I taped it to a TV so that it was level, and I just started talking, sweating my ass off, nervous. I wrote a book. My first book, I wrote that first book, printed and ordered 100 copies before I even did one video. I was like, I don't have no plan. My plan is to write this book, do YouTube videos, and then hopefully that these books will sell. Hopefully people will want the information in the book. That's how I started. I didn't have a plan. I just started. Don't think that you have to have a plan to every little thing. You just have to have a general plan. I'm going to write a book and then sell the book. That's a plan. Then it got a little bit more intricate. I'm going to do YouTube videos. Then once those YouTube videos kick up, then I'm going to offer my book for sale. That was the full plan. And look what developed from that. By one person just starting, another person seeing that someone's trying to start something, and then her helping. So don't think you're the only one in your territory. Don't think you're alone. And don't worry about where to start. Just start. Just do it. Because you could think about 10,000 ways to start something. Like, damn, I really want a sandwich. But where do I start? Do I get the bread first? Or do I get the mayonnaise first? Or do I get the cheese first? What do I get first? Just get the bread. Just grab anything. The first thing you see, grab it. All right, I'm going to grab the knife. All right, now I'm going to get the bread. All right, cool. Now what else do I need? Once you start starting, then you see what you need next. Just start. All right, Morris, I don't want to drag this out anymore. Love y'all. Thank you for bailing us out when we needed you. Thank you for coming through when we needed you. Thank you. You're important. Never forget it. Don't doubt it for a second. Don't give up. Keep going. I love you. Peace. I hope I get to see all of you in the flesh one day and just meet you, see you in person, and share love with you. Peace.